the Lake County Board of Commissioners. Of all those who are willing and able, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision, neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority. And may we use our directives for the for the common good and for thy honor and glory. Amen. Amen. Thank you all. We have before us the meeting minutes for the regular meetings of January 12, 2023, February 20. Oh, good heavens. Skip that one. Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present.
Commissioner Regovich.
Here.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here, at least physically. All right, now meeting minutes. My goodness, we have before us the meeting minutes of the regular meeting of January 12, 2023, February 2023, and March 2nd, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve same, waiving the reading thereof?
Move to approve. Second.
Are there any additions or corrections? No? Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Okay, this brings us to our first public comment portion of our meeting. I would like to start off, though. I have a number of people in the audience that I did ask after our last workshop to come and offer up their thoughts, their concerns, the values of what's important, especially on our east side, but regarding our county roads and bridges. I felt it's important that we hear from the people, the trusted voices who also represent many. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, a budget is a financial translation of an organization's programs and goals. It reflects the values of what we are investing in. And with that, is there anyone wishing to address this board at this time? Ma'am? If you could, your name and address, please, for the record.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Lori Bobin. I live at 6067 Ford Road. I've been a Lake County resident for 32 years, and I've lived in my current residence for 21 of those years on Ford Road. I'm here today with the concern of public safety due to our numerous road closures. As I listened to our county engineer, Mr. Gills, refer to it at the March 28th meeting, I could not agree more. This is the perfect storm. In South Madison and Leroy, we are experiencing time-consuming, multiple road detours for the Ford and Payne Road situation. It's also scary thought that we probably will lose Blair Road soon as well, which at this time is our detour to River Road. On top of the major inconvenience lies the more dire issue of public safety. I cannot stress enough the heightened anxiety that comes with wondering if my neighbors or I should need fire, rescue, or law enforcement immediately, that their response time would be prompt. And even if construction were able to start on our road repairs tomorrow, I realize that these are big projects, and our public safety concerns will still remain for quite some time until completion. But please, the sooner the better. And on a personal note, as I watched the March 28th meeting, I'd like to say that while I understand Mr. Plechnik's desire to balance the 2023 budget, his 3 firm hell no's regarding this situation was very disrespectful to the constituents of South Madison and Leroy. And I would ask that he have more empathy for the Lake County residents who have to deal with this situation on a daily basis and who could possibly pay the ultimate price in an emergency situation. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Sir.
Hi, my name is Todd Baker. I'm at 840 River Street, and I'm here representing Madison Fire District, and I'm here as a resident of South Madison on Ford Road, 5312 Ford Road. And Lori, was it? Thank you for your comments. I'm here to express some very similar concerns. It's been 8 months. I've talked to Tracy from the engineer's office. It sounds like Ford Road is going to be maybe in 2024 if there's funding. And I'm here to represent the residents of Madison Village and Madison Township. And my responsibility as the fire chief of Madison is to provide timely service. And I know 2 of the 3 of you are West Side folks. And on the west side of town, when you close a road and you have a quarter-mile detour, it's probably not a big deal. But the detour that you're asking public servants like myself and public safety to deal with is 6 or 7 miles. 6 or 7 miles translates to 6 or 7 minutes, 8 or 9 minutes. And what I'd ask the commissioners to do is think about you or your family members and that delay in time, that delay in transfer. Captain Sitz is here from Perry. One of the things that this is forcing us to do is depend on other communities. So our Madison residents have to depend on Perry to support. We have to depend on Leroy to support us, both of which have to come from greater distances than us. So it is a major disservice having that road closure, and it's an even more major disservice to not have answers as to when we're going to have a solution to the problem. 2024 means that that road will be closed for 16 or 18 months. And that's if funding's approved, and that's if the money's there and the plans are in place, and then it's going to take a time to get that project done. But I also wanted to speak on a personal note because I live at 5312 Ford Road, and I want to share my own personal experience, and I want to share another experience, and I want you guys to think about this. On March 8th, my mother had a knee replacement at 85 years old. I brought her home on March 9th. On March 9th, my mother went unconscious. And I had to call 911 for my 85-year-old mother, who I'm holding in my arms unconscious. And because another situation was going on with Perry, I couldn't depend on Perry. That situation also took Leroy. I couldn't depend on Leroy. I had to depend on our services, which were significantly delayed because the county's road closure. And 12 minutes of drive time to get to an emergency for somebody potentially having a stroke is just completely unnecessary. And I can tell you, as a family member of a loved one having to deal with that, and then hearing that we're talking about things like archways and signs to promote agritourism, I really, really, really would encourage this board to consider infrastructure and public safety before we consider marketing for agritourism, which I know is important to the county. But what's really important to the county and to Lori and to the residents of South Madison and Leroy is to have timely access to emergency care, whether that's law enforcement, fire, police. So I hope this board considers funding Mr. Gills in the engineer's office so that we can take care of these problems. Because I go down Blair Road every day, and I don't want to put Mr. Gills on the spot, but that road seems to be sinking, and there's only one resort left. So the longer you wait, the greater the peril we come in, and that public safety is something I'm here to speak representing my residents, so that falls on the lap of this commission to find a way to fund that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else? Mr. Music. Go.
John Music, 45 Coventry Drive. I just wanted to give my opinions on a couple things today. First of all, Commissioner Plechnik, I want to thank you for speaking up for the seniors. Everybody knows that I've been coming to these meetings for almost 20 years now, and I speak up for the people that can no longer help themselves. I mean, it's like I'm a patriotic conservative. That's what I am. I'll always be that, and it's better to give than to receive, in my opinion. We need more people that to give instead of asking for everything. And just like I've talked about so many times, is that a lot of seniors are hurting. A lot of them. I talk to them every day. Go take a walk over here at Jackson Towers or over here at Washington Square. Talk to them people. Talk to them. I live in a condo complex, and I've said this before. 2 people had to give up their cars because they couldn't afford the roof over their head plus a car. So all I'm saying, and the larger government gets, the more it costs to operate it. It's just like former president says, we need a limited government. Limited. If you look up in the Ohio Revised Code, and then and of course you got our Ohio Constitution, the highest state law, and then the Ohio Revised Code, and then the Administrative Code. Look in there, and just see what basically counties have to do. And the thing, you have to look at that. And just like I've said many times, these 3 over here do a great job of watching our taxpayer dollars. They do. But long before you 3 were here, I kept telling the commissioners, be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And if you look up what the word a steward is, basically it's taking care and responsibility for something that isn't yours. And that's the tax dollars. So, but I do want to thank you, Mr. Plechnik, for standing up for the seniors. And as usual, I'm going to speak up. And I guess people that don't know me, I go to D.C., I go down to Columbus, I go to meetings throughout the country. And the thing about it is you learn a lot. Just like I've watched the work session here 3 times now. And I could say a lot, but we only got 5 minutes. So anyhow, the thing about it is, you don't know what a senior is until you are one. Like SME, subject matter expert, you don't know what a senior is until you are there. Don't tell me like I heard a comment made, live on fixed income. Well, live on a fixed income of $20,000 versus $100,000 and tell me it's the same. Duh. It isn't the same. And there's a lot of people that's all they get is Social Security. And I talked to 1 or 2 yesterday because they called me. They get $17,000 from Social Security. That's all they get. And they no pensions. And as far as pensions goes in the private sector, they're gone. Only people that get pensions now are basically taxpayers are paying for it. So the thing about it is, and as usual, I'm going to end with this. I support 100% our law enforcement, which includes the sheriff's office, the prosecutor's office, and our county judges. There is nothing more important. If you do your look around in the world, what is happening, it's like now the SWAT team was used again here in Painesville. It's just like, and we had the drug cartels, and as you know, I've been working on that for over 25 years. The drug cartels are here, and it's only going to get worse when the gangs are here. They're here in Painesville, they're here all over. The reason I'm mentioning Painesville, because we're only a few miles away, blocks away from where all this stuff is happening. And so I just want to say, I know you got to make tough decisions. Easy decisions are easy, but tough decisions are hard. And what is going on in our world today? It's tough. Economically, it's tough. So all I can tell you is we need to give all 3 of those what they need to do their job. Like it or not, that's a #1 priority. And just to magnify that, U.S. Constitution preamble, what's the last words? Excuse me. What is some of the words? The first thing, we the people of the I had to memorize this in elementary school. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. Now, we all said the Pledge of Allegiance this morning. What are some of the last words in the Pledge of Allegiance? With liberty and justice for all. So where are our priorities? Let's be real, because trust me, I've talked to very many people that come from other countries, and they all say, what is happening in the United States is the reason I left my country. And it's happening here. So if we don't have law enforcement, and I've said this before, at the national level, #1 is military and law enforcement. the states, we do have a National Guard, so you have the National Guard plus law enforcement. And your number one priority here is law enforcement. So do what you got to do, and you talk about protecting the people. Do what you got to do, and I thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to address the board? No. Go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Heather Shelton. I am a Leroy Township trustee, and I want to thank you for allowing me to address this board today to express my concerns about the road closures and failed bridges in Leroy Township and how they are negatively impacting the taxpayers that reside there. The closure of Payne Road and the Ford Road Bridge have created a crisis situation in Leroy and our neighboring communities by prolonging our response times and emergency calls and placing us in a position where we now rely on other townships to provide emergency services to our residents. This, in turn, causes a ripple effect because now this leaves another township without coverage for their potential emergency calls. In the past 8 months, we've had to call upon Perry Township 10 times to address the needs of our residents in the northeast section of Leroy. In speaking with our fire chief, Mike Tillman, he stated to me that the current road closures have increased the response times to these affected areas approximately 5 minutes when traveling in an EMS vehicle or fire truck. The alternate road they must take is Taylor Road, and due to the road now being used as a cut-through, the amount of increased traffic has further deteriorated this road, leaving it in deplorable conditions. This, in addition to the two 90-degree turns and the steep, treacherous hill at the end of Taylor Road, all create yet another challenge for EMS vehicles to get to those in need in a timely manner. As a nurse with experience in caring for cardiac and stroke patients, 5 minutes is vital. It is the difference between irreversible cardiac damage to someone suffering from an acute MI or the potential for increased brain trauma for someone experiencing a stroke. Time is of the essence in moments like these. We have a responsibility to the taxpayers of Leroy and all of Lake County, for that matter, to provide medical services as efficiently as possible. For me, maintaining and preserving the roads and bridges for which our first responders and sheriff use to provide services to the Lake County residents goes hand in hand with public safety, and therefore should be considered a priority. I understand Mr. Gills presented the commissioners with a list of projects not fully funded for this year's budget. He's made every effort to try to find alternate funds for these projects with no success. So now what? Doing nothing cannot be an option. The Band-Aids we have applied in the past have bought us time, but are failing, and we are now dealing with gaping wounds. We need your help. 6 of the projects listed on the list that he provided to the engineers directly impact traffic coming into and going out of Leroy Township. If you add the project dollar amounts of Callow Road, Ford Road, Payne Road, Blair Road, Williams Road, Leroy Thompson Road, you come up with a total that exceeds more than 50% of what his ask was for the shortfall for this upcoming budget. As a township trustee and as a nurse who serves in this community, this many repair projects in such a concentrated area is a recipe for disaster and is very concerning. This deserves your attention. These challenging economic times are forcing all of us to look at our budgets before spending a dime. We're asking ourselves, is this a need or a want? Leroy does not want repaired roads with functional bridges. We need repaired roads with functional bridges. I implore this board to please consider the funding for the road projects that are preventing Lake County residents from receiving the basic public safety and medical services they deserve. Thank you.
Sir?
Greg Gigerich, 5640 Middle Ridge Road, Madison, Ohio. Listen, I'm not going to come up here and beat a dead horse. We all know what the problem is, but I would just like to ask the commissioners to find it in their heart to grant Mr. Gills some extra money in his budget to complete these projects that need done for the citizens in the South Madison area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address this board? Sir?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ken Gautner, Madison Township Trustee, also Chairman of the Madison Fire District, and former County Administrator. And like Mr. Gigerich said, I'm not going to beat a dead horse either. I understand the funding issues you're dealing with. I spent 20 years sitting in Commissioner budget hearings during my time here. And I also know that it's not normal for the county commissioners to take money out of the general fund and give it to the county engineer. Unless something's changed, about 90% of his budget goes directly to him from the state of Ohio through gasoline and license plate tax. Has that changed at all, Jim, or is that still the way it works? So in the past, about 10% of his budget was all the commissioners had to deal with. Times have changed, though. The advent of electrical vehicles is taking away from gas tax money. It's reducing the amount of money Mr. Gills has, and everybody else in the state has. More energy efficient vehicles is also taken away from the gas tax, which reduces his amount. So I know when everybody stands up here and says you need to find that money, we do need it. How you're going to do it, I don't know. I sat through many budget hearings. I can think back to 2008 and 2009 after the Great Recession hit, and how the commissioners struggled to come up with money to make ends meet. And it wasn't until they had to invoke the sales tax, which I think was in 2011 or 2012, that they actually really got out of that problem. Chief Baker, Trustee Shelton, both reiterated what I want to say is we need that bridge opened. I don't know how you're going to do it yet. I would hope that you can find the money somewhere in the budget, and I know how difficult that is. It's not easy. Your job is not easy. It's very difficult when you got to weigh all the different requests you have. But it's a public safety issue, and I appreciate the fact that a couple meetings ago there was some discussion taking place about giving some money to the wine industry and promoting tourism in Eastern Lake County. I can't tell you how happy that makes me feel, because I think in Madison Township the wineries are a great asset. We bring people in from all over, and we need to promote them more. So I take no umbrage with that. As a matter of fact, I think I sent all three of you an email that said, you know, I wasn't opposed to the idea. I had some opposition to how this archway was going to read, but that's really it. But at this time, maybe we need to reevaluate how you're going to fund that, and maybe we need to shift some money over to the county engineer. I know in the March 23rd meeting, Tracy Sokowitz said when she talked about the Ford Road Bridge that she had enough money for the preliminary design, but she didn't even have the money to do the final design, let alone build it. And I know that you guys went to Jim has went to OPWC trying to get some emergency funding there. I don't know if he's going to get that. I sat on that District 7 board for the county commissioners for 10 years, and there's a huge amount of people with their hand out wanting money. A lot of communities are in trouble because, again, the gasoline tax and license plate tax isn't what it used to be. And it's the state legislature needs to get together, and they need to find out how we're going to fund roads in the future, because as the federal government continues to push the EVs, the money is going to get less and less and less. It makes your job even harder. So, Commissioners, I appreciate you giving me the chance to come up here today. It is important. I think our police chief said it all. Minutes are really, really important, and we have the whole west end of Ford Road that we can't get to unless we go 6-7 miles out of the way, and then we have to rely on Leroy or Perry. And if they have an issue going on, it's going to take us a long time to get there. This is a life safety issue, and it's one that really needs to be addressed. And if we lose Blair Road, and I heard Jim say in the last meeting that in 24 months, Blair Road, the retaining wall on Blair Road is going to need to be replaced, and that's like $2.4 million. If we lose Blair Road, we lose Payne Road, and we lose Ford Road, those people out there in that area of South Madison are going to be almost on an island. The only way to get there is to go up through Geauga County and into Thompson. You have a difficult job. I've been there. I understand it. And I hope you can find a way to help Mr. Gills get some funding to get these bridges going. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Dee Dee Sisson. I reside at 6579 Ford Road. I've lived there since 2001. I offer a different perspective. Safety is paramount, but my situation is not as important. However, it's part of what everyone has to experience living on Ford Road and in the area in their daily lives. I'm a natural gas well tender. I have several gas wells on Ford Road. I have taken care of all of them at one time. That being said, all of these road closures are a huge inconvenience. I take care of gas wells from Conneaut all the way down to Brunswick Hills, Ohio. And the road closures that we're dealing with right now in this area are a tangled mess and causing exponential time frames for me to complete my work. It's not a safety concern. However, I do have to call in triaxle trucks to remove brine water from these wells, and I have to call in oil tankers to come and remove crude oil from the wells as well. Not to mention possible emergency situations. We are placing extra burdens on the other roads that are also failing to get these triaxle trucks in there. They come in, they load up with approximately 80 barrels of fluid. I don't have the scientific numbers on how much that weight is, but it's pretty, I mean, it's heavy. So there's extra weight being put on already failing roads. And I already drive approximately 473 miles a week at a minimum. It's adding at least an extra hour to my day to travel to all of these gas wells with the Ford Road road closure. I typically would travel from Ford Road to Blair to Carter, cross over Vrooman, and get to my gas wells in Concord. Now I have to go back to Trask, to Balch, to Clay Street, to Thompson Road, and then hit 86. So my point is, safety is paramount. My problems are not that big, but I wanted to offer another perspective on it, that there are heavyweight vehicles that are having to take detours over these other failing roads, and it's imperative that we start to make a plan to get these failed the roads that are already failed fixed. And I also feel that we may be placing vanity of our community over the safety and necessity of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your perspective. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Ma'am.
My name is Terry Ditch Creek. I'm the fiscal officer for Madison Township. And I don't have a prepared speech, but my years of being a trustee, my last 14 years of being the fiscal officer, I work on the budget a lot. 2 or 3 times a year we have requirements that we have to meet. I know that we do the best that we can. I know that you're trying to do your best. But for me, as a resident also, the safety of our people is the most important. And I know that once in a while you want to do some aesthetic improvements to your town, but we have to pass that up. Many times we look at our budget, we go over it, we talk about what each department needs, but in this situation, we need your support to get this done, to give Mr. Gills the money he needs to try to fix these roads before someone loses their life. It's when you have the school buses go down there, they have to turn around. and come back the other way after they've picked up those children. The snowplows go down there, and they have to turn around. It's not an easy place to turn around at any time, but the utmost issue here is the safety. 2 or 3 minutes means life or death of whether somebody can get there in time. And I know you say you don't know if you have the money to do it, but please, there's a way to, when it's this important, I think you have to find a way. So we're asking you to please try harder. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? I am in receipt of a letter from the Perry Joint Fire District. Chief was not available today to be with us. I do believe Executive Captain Sitz is with us, if I may. This letter is in regards to the road closures on Ford Road and Payne Road in Madison and Leroy Townships. For the safety of the residents, the Perry Joint Fire District is currently responding automatically, automatic mutual aid, for fire and emergency medical service calls to both Madison and Leroy Township. Due to these road closures, the fire departments were forced into this agreement to lessen any delays during an emergency to these areas. It is imperative for the safety of these residents to have these roads repaired. Additionally, the Perry Joint Fire District quickest access to this area is by way of Blair Road. There have been incidents in the past that have closed Blair Road, which would further the delay in any response to an emergency. These road closures have created response delays during emergencies and will continue to cause delays until they are fixed. Thank you, and please contact me with any questions. Just wanted to get that in under the context of this conversation. And one last time, do we have anyone else wishing to address this board at this time? All right, this will conclude our first public comment portion. There will be another at the end of the meeting for those who are attending for your first time. Moving on, Madam Clerk, resolutions, please.
In special resolutions, resolution proclaiming April 2023 Child Abuse Prevention Month in Lake County.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. President,
Sir.
this is a time in particular to recognize Lake County Job and Family Services. In every discussion we have, we talk about the primary importance of safety in our community. I think it was Mr. Music who said, in particular, we need to speak for those who have no voice. Sometimes that's the seniors, and Job and Family Services works in particular with seniors for elder abuse, but sometimes it's our children too. And I won't repeat the terrible situations that our department has to deal with on a daily basis, but they do it with love and with care and with respect. They do it for less pay than they deserve, but all we can afford. And they make sure that the children of Lake County are safe one way or the other. I mean, they literally will drive out to get a kid. They may not even be on hours. It may not even be on their clock. They still will answer the call anytime a child needs them. And so when we announce Child Abuse Prevention Month, we ask all of you to help Lake County Job and Family Services in this important work. If you see something, say something. It may not benefit you personally, but you have to be the voice for the voiceless. And we join with Job and Family Services in this important task as we publicly announce Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Thank you, sir. Sir?
I agree wholeheartedly. They do a great job, and the children are our future, truly are, and we have to look out for them, as Commissioner Pleshnik said. So kudos to your staff and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Suzanne, I have to ask, these the services that are being provided through Job Family Services, Children's Services, how are they paid for?
So we have a variety of funding streams. We do receive some funding through the state of Ohio, but we also have a levy, a Children's Services levy, that we are grateful to the voters of Lake County that they have historically supported through many years. So levy dollars, state funding, and we do receive some federal dollars for Children's Services.
But just to make a finer point, the Children's Services levy that the people of Lake County have wisely, I believe, seen fit to approve and to continue to support, that is your primary source of funding.
Correct.
So I just want to emphasize for Mr. Music's benefit, and as I stated earlier, these are the values we have. We're bookended, our seniors as well as our children. And it is tax dollars that are paying for this. It's not magic money that comes from a printing machine in Washington. It's the hard-earned dollars of the people of Lake County being wisely invested. I just want to emphasize that. So, if there's nothing further. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Suzanne, you want to come on up? We got a, you know the drill.
Sure, I do have some staff members from Children's Services that I would also invite up.
Please, thank you.
Want to meet your props? Suzanne, get your props. It's more fun.
So what's that little TV that says wee wee wee? Are you kidding me?
His, all right. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
One limit.
Thank you, Bishop.
Congratulations.
See, boys and our toys, we all have pinwheels now.
Madam Director, would you mind sharing the symbolism of the pinwheel?
Sure. So there are some Prevention Month activities that we have planned throughout the month of April. And the pinwheels are planted outside of our agency in the month of April as an uplifting reminder of the bright and happy childhood that every young citizen in Lake County deserves. So while every day across the street is Child Abuse Prevention Day, at Job and Family Services, our child abuse hotline rings every day. And again, these are just an uplifting reminder of the bright and happy future that every child deserves. We also have some lapel pins here and wristbands, Job and Family Services wristbands saying keeping kids safe. So I would invite anyone who would like to recognize April being Child Abuse Prevention Month to grab some items as they leave the meeting today.
And Madam Director, I believe you're having a fundraiser for your Foster Parents Association. Could you share those details?
Sure. So that fundraiser is going to be at Lavera Party Center on April 8th. We look forward to this event. It has been on hold due to COVID, so this is the first year that we are bringing this event back in many years, but it's a great opportunity to recognize our Foster Parent Association, and it's a great gathering of all of our community partners that we rely on at Job and Family Services to keep children safe. So that includes our judges and our law enforcement and our prosecutor's office and our mental health agencies and many others that I am failing to mention right now. But we are looking forward to that event to recognize our Foster Parent Association who keep children in our custody safe each day here in Lake County.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, if there's nothing further on that, Madam Clerk.
In the engineer's office, resolution awarding a bid contract to Carvo Companies Incorporated for the LAK Prouty Road, County Road 414 resurfacing project as required by the Lake County engineer in the amount of $2,097,004.50.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, engineer.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, this is a project that we received federal funds from the WACA. It's on 80-20 cost sharing. So our portion of this particular project is probably going to be in the area of $400,000, $400,000 to $500,000 with engineering, construction, inspection, and testing and things like that. This project is much needed. The pavement rating is very low and will be done this year, starting in a few weeks.
And your reference to paving rating, that has to do with your roads and bridges reports, your annual reports, that's where we'd be able to find that?
Well, we don't want to give up $1.6 million, so we will find a way. If it is part of the report I gave on March 28th, I believe, we will fund that. If we do not get additional funds, then something that we have on the board that we need to move forward has a lesser priority, and we're not going to lose the 1.6 mil. That project, whatever it is, we'll have to look at it, will not go forward.
Very good, sir. Thank you. If there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Utilities Department, resolution approving plan specifications and estimates of cost in the amount of $48,890.05 for water lines for Maypine Park Phase 2 subdivision in the city of Willoughby Hills, job number 22-19.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution amending the certification of the Lake County Department of Utilities unpaid sewer service, water, and administrative charges to the Lake County Auditor.
Approve. Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution awarding a bid contract in the amount of $411,950 to United Survey for Bellflower Area Sanitary Sewer Improvement, Palmerston Sanitary Sewer Rehab Project 403S.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And Job and Family Services Department, resolution approving Lake County Department of Job and Family Services vouchers, date of warrant April 7, 2023, in the amount of $80,841.46.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Commissioner's Office, resolution authorizing the county to participate in the state Microsoft term contract and executing a contract with Dell and Microsoft for licensing to migrate email infrastructure to Microsoft Office 365.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? We do have Nick in the audience if we want to get some technical stuff into the mix. Okay, I guess this has to do, I'll just throw a little quick one out there. This has to do with our email server. Our ability to maintain that has reached end of service life. There is no clear migration path, so this alternate move will give us the same capabilities we have and some additional capabilities. The Board of Commissioners, I believe, have committed for the next 2 years to cover those costs, and then we will be migrating those costs back to the individual departments so we don't shock their budgets. And the auditor is smiling broadly, so I must have said something in a good way. Nick, did I capture all that pretty good?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. All right, if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing advertising for bids for Lake County Sheriff's Office Technical Simulations Garage. Bid opening April 26, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Sir.
I believe that this contribution to the Sheriff's Range and Training Facility is a further reflection of Lake County's absolute commitment to public safety. This isn't just a great asset to our Sheriff's Department, which patrols the townships. This is a great asset to every law enforcement agency in the county, which will have access to this new facility to make sure that our police are trained in difficult situations, are the most accurate, bless you, and capable that they can possibly be. So this is a real asset to Lake County. It'll also be a long-term cost savings because instead of having to send your police officers to another county pay for their hotel, travel, and training, we'll be able to do it right here. So a huge thank you to our sheriff's office and engineer for working together on this project to make sure that we maintain safety going forward.
Thank you, sir. If I could just echo that and add, I want to say thank you to our prosecutor and to our sheriff. We originally were looking at this as a potential public-private partnership, and when I brought it to the sheriff, because it didn't look like we could make that work, the sheriff took this up and embraced it. And I have to give high praise to his team for taking this and growing it and offering it as an asset for all of Lake County. As we did with Lexipol, a countywide system that is, I believe, not only the first in the state, but the first in the nation to have a countywide system. I believe the leadership that our sheriff and his administrative team have shown, putting together a facility that will be of great value for all law enforcement here in the county. Sheriff, is there anything you want to add to that conversation, or have we captured it properly, sir?
Very good.
Oh, very good. Thank you, sir. All right, if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the Lake County Administrator to execute an agreement for excess workers' compensation and employers' liability insurance with USI Insurance Services, agent for Midwest Employers Casualty Company, effective April 1st, 2023 through April 1st, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution to reappoint Carl Dondorfer as a member of the Region 13 One Ohio Governance Board to represent the unincorporated areas of Lake County for a 2-year term beginning March 30th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Sir.
once again, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Carl Dondorfer for his service to Lake County, not only as a township trustee and chief of the White Hill Police, but a member of our Adams Board, and now joining us on One Ohio Governance Board. He wears many hats, he does a lot of work on our behalf, and he does it well, so thank you for serving, Carl.
Thank you, sir. And to just clarify, this is more of a ministerial function as the state foundation and the individual regions are adopting their formal bylaws and setting up schedules and rotations of membership. We needed to go back and reappoint or reaffirm, and that'll also be taking place very soon with the Region 13 board. So this is more of a ministerial function at this point. But again, as Commissioner Plechnik pointed out, thank you to Carl Dondorfer for all the services he provides to the people of Lake County and our region. And if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $1,449,375.42.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $1,936,393.30.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving the 2023 permanent appropriation measure for the general fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? And I have before us, let's see, the general fund is the chief operating fund for the county and accounts for the fiscal resources except those to be accounted for in another fund per the Ohio Revised Code restrictions. For the full year 2023, projected revenues $70,432,060. 2022 projected revenues were I'm sorry, did I say thousand? Let me just start over. Full year, man, we're in serious trouble if we're in the thousands. I'm sorry, when we're dealing with millions, billions, trillions, let me just restart if I may, please. Full year 2023 projected revenues, $70,432,060. 2022 projected revenues, $61,237,875. Projected revenues increased by $9,194,185 or 15.01%. 2023 projected appropriations, $70,387,488. 2022 projected appropriations, $61,217,374. Projected appropriations increased by $9,170,114 or 14.99%. Cause for the increase in projected revenues: interest earnings are projected significantly higher than in 2022. Some additional information: healthcare costs continue to rise, even though we are doing a better job than other entities. The board has made changes to help control the costs with employee coverage. Law enforcement represents the majority of our expenditures in other categories, with medical care within the jail continuing to rise significantly each year. Judicial and public safety represents over 62% of the proposed budget. The majority of the increases in comparison with 2022 are increases in the sheriffs, prosecutors, courts, and public defender. Let's see, talk of upcoming recession remains very much a concern for the county. We are facing many capital projects, and it is great to have higher than normal interest earnings, but with higher interest earnings, borrowing costs of money are also more, along with goods or services, and prices are also a challenge. We are in the middle of union negotiations as well, and the final costs of that is yet to be known. Our goals are hopefully clear. That is where we are investing. Our county elected officials and department heads remain dedicated to the residents of Lake County to provide the best services possible with their current staffing levels based on estimated resources. Gentlemen, anything you want to add to that?
Mr. President?
Sir.
If I may, as many of our residents have shared today, our budget is the single most important job of the County Commission. I'm very grateful to my colleagues for joining with me in adopting a balanced budget today. As the numbers you cited show, our projected revenues and expenditures are very close to one another. We obviously hope for a greater surplus come the end of the year, but that's contingent on sales tax, property tax collections, as well as expenses, which will continue to change as inflation and supply chain issues impact the county. Although this is the single most important vote, we continue to amend and work on our budget throughout the year. If there are additional expenditures, we will work to wrestle with them. If there are additional revenues, we will work to allocate them. As I said in the previous work sessions, when a county department asks for $10 million we don't have, my answer isn't just no, it's hell no. But if at the end of the year there is more money, we will make strategic investments. But if there is not, we won't. There's not a single township trustee or city council person that would commit to spend money they don't yet have. We are responsible on behalf of residents to make sure that the budget balances. And I'm very proud that in this budget, although we've wrestled with it to make it balance and work for the people, we have made a historic investment in our county prosecutor's office. And as the union negotiations conclude, we will have made a great investment in our sheriff's office as well, because we've heard loud and clear that safety is the single most important thing to our residents. Now, we're all hopeful collectively that there will be more money. And if there is, no one will be happier than the County Commission. And we recognize the importance of not just police and first responders, but roads and bridges as well. But it comes down to the resources that we have. In the meanwhile, we're going to continue to reach out to state and federal sources. We're not going to stop working, and I know our county engineer will not either. It would be very easy for any one of us to point to one agency or another and say, you should come up with this or you should come up with that. But our practice is to work together to find the solution as quickly as possible. So this budget is not finished because the budget is not done until the year is over, but it is our starting point. And I'm very proud that each and every time I've sat at this dais with my colleagues, and now for the first time with Commissioner Regovich, we have balanced our budget without raising taxes, which we've heard from so many residents that that is their priority. They want the county to make do with what we have, and we pledge and promise that we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Hearing you say you welcome us in joining you in this balanced budget would be akin to saying we welcome you for abiding by the speed limit when we're driving down the road. This board is governed by the laws of the state of Ohio, which require a balanced budget. In the 184-year history of Lake County, we have never not had a balanced budget. The inference tends to confuse people, and I've had a number of people asking why we want to have an unbalanced budget. Unencumbered funds, which we have access to, and we also have heard loud and clear from the community. We have never been in a stronger financial position, but I think we can hopefully all agree we have never seen this perfect storm of demands on our available resources. They are exceeding what we have, but emergencies and crises are indeed relevant. And if I may just point out, and I believe our budget director's in the audience, we have $8 million in the general fund unencumbered. That's called carryover. We have a budget stabilization capability of $9 million. We have an economic development fund of $10 million. And as we have been talking about, we are receiving additional interest money, which is unbudgeted, that will be coming in from the county's resources. I say thank you to Meter, which is the body that has been employed by our county treasurer. The monies are there to satisfy our county engineer. To infer or say clearly otherwise would be in error at best, or at worst, a false factual statement. So again, by law, we must have a balanced budget. I believe in truth in advertising, and as I've said before, and I'll say it one more time, a budget is the financial translation of the organization's programs and goals. It reflects the values of what we're investing in. And with that, if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I do believe, in the interest of truth in advertising, that it's important to talk about the state law requirement that municipalities and counties balance their budget, because so many local elected officials, frankly, take advantage of this law to make the bold claim they balance the budget when they really haven't, in terms of the definition that most residents and taxpayers would use themselves. Most of us would say, you've voted for a deficit budget if you vote to spend more money than you're taking in. That is the common sense definition of deficit spending versus spending no more than you take in, which is the common sense definition of balancing the budget. Now, state law provides that you can also, quote unquote, balance the budget by borrowing money or raising taxes or dipping into savings. Most residents would say if you're spending more than you're taking in, you're deficit spending. That's what we would normally define in terms of economics as a deficit budget. But it is certainly true that state law defines balanced budgets differently. And so you'll see many a mayor, a commissioner, a council person brag about balancing a budget, even though they're really balancing it by dipping into savings, raising taxes, or borrowing money. The reason why I think that both of my colleagues deserve to be commended for this budget is that we're not doing that in this budget. We are truly balancing the budget in the same definition that you would use at your kitchen table. I know there are those who disagree. I think it was County Commissioner candidate Maureen Kelly who most powerfully said, oh, state law requires us to balance the budget, it's no big deal. But I think that any municipal or county elected official would tell you actually truly balancing the budget is a big deal. It is an accomplishment beyond just complying with state law, just keeping the speed limit, if you will. I respect Maureen Kelly, I respect President Hamercheck, but I respectfully disagree. I think we should use the common sense definition that our residents and neighbors would have to at their kitchen table, rather than look at a technicality in state law so that everyone can get the participation trophy and say, well, the law required us to balance the budget, and so we did. This is a good day for Lake County, but it's the beginning. because ultimately we will see if we outperform. And I know that every department is going to work to find savings, and every department is going to work to grow the base in revenue, so hopefully there will be more money in the end. The second point that I want to raise is that in terms of supporting law enforcement, not just our jail, but our police department for the county is based out of the adult detention facility, aka the Lake County Jail, which we absolutely need to replace. This is something that all three commissioners have discussed at the public meeting. This is something our corrections board has unanimously endorsed. We support our sheriff in this historic task. That is going to be a major expense. And our budget director and we have gone back and forth on how we're going to wrestle with that cost. Now, there are county commissioners who might go to township trustee meetings or city council meetings and say, we need your help. How much money can you give us toward the jail? We are not doing that. We're going to find a way to make it work within our budget, difficult though that task will be. So I don't want us to think of the money in the budget stabilization fund or any excess interest, which we're hoping will come through, as simply extra. Our budget director has said to me many times, this is a heavy lift. I'm not sure how we're going to get there with the jail. Well, we are going to get there because state law requires us to, and we're going to do that work for the people. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's going to be an easy budget to balance. That is going to be our next major task. But I am 100% committed to meeting that obligation, supporting our sheriff, getting it done, and making sure that we have a facility that lasts 50 to 60 years so that we don't have to re-burden residents with this expense. It's a shame that we're having to have this conversation 31, 32 years after the last jail was built. It was built very poorly. But we're going to do it right this time so that we don't burden the next generation with this jail expense prematurely again. Realistically, that is going to be the next big heavy lift for the county, and it's important for all of us to understand that. It's not as though the jail is done and already paid for. This is going to be estimated, best case scenario, best case, all contingencies going in our favor, $140 million expense, projected to be as high as $170 million, and we've been told that every month that we delay adds another $1 million to that cost. So it's critically important if we want to have any money for roads and bridges, for sheriff's deputies and judges going forward, we've got to get this job done rather than let this liability accrue further and further and further. So I call on my colleagues to join me in all due speed and get this jail built. Getting the budget done is the first step toward that, so we know what our expenses are projected to be for the year, and we can work within that framework. But we have to get on that project now. And if we don't, there will be no money for roads and bridges in the future because that cost will continue to balloon. If previous boards of commissioners had addressed this issue, and I can't blame Commissioner Regovich, hasn't been here that long, but if previous boards had addressed this issue years ago, the cost was projected to be really about half of what we're talking about now. The delay certainly may have made it easier for past boards, but we have to get this job done now. I've been saying this for a while. Get it started, get it started, get it started. Well, I am saying the jail needs to happen now. It's our police department for the county. It is core to safety. There will be no sheriff deputy showing up. Even if the road is paved with gold, if there is no sheriff deputy and there is no police department. So we've got to make sure that that happens. We have to support our sheriff in this regard, and the longer we wait, the more expensive it will be for the county.
And that dissertation by my math just cost us $27,000. But anyway, if it's $1 million a year, cost escalation is what I'm joking. Forgive my puerile attempt at humor. Commissioner Pleshnik, if I use your own definition of the difference between projected revenues and projected appropriations, it's less than $45,000. During our budget hearings, I tried to get additional monies built into the Sheriff's Department to accurately reflect what the likely outcome will be of our Sheriff's deputy negotiations. If I were to use your definition, we will be deficit spending if we honor our agreement with the unions. By your definition, our courts have said they will be needing to make adjustments beyond their ask at our budget discussions. We heard Judge O'Donnell loud and clear speaking on behalf of the courts that staff attorneys and magistrates will need to have adjustments. All of this is going to be keyed after our prosecutor and public defender. They are the lead elements on this. That will be the triggering event, if I can use that term. So again, by your definition, we will be deficit spending. I disagree with that. In good times, it's kind of like the ant and the grasshopper. You store things up. We have indeed, and I will look to Mr. Music yet again, been good stewards of the people's money. We have been building resources. We have been in the strongest financial position in the history of Lake County. But the demands on these dollars are real. The numbers that I shared earlier are real. And I, for one, intend to honor our agreement with our courts, with our sheriff, and our other obligations, such as our coroner, and I need not go through the entire list. That $45,000 is not going to be an artificial ceiling, and to infer otherwise would be inaccurate. So if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving the 2023 permanent appropriation measure for funds outside the general fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, let's see, we got the permanent 2023 outside general fund budget, and we have two types of funds. We have the outside, and that's for governmental and, oh good heaven, proprietary. Our governmental funds, these are special revenue, debt service, and permanent improvement funds. These funds account for all grants and other resources whose use is restricted, committed, or assigned to a particular purpose. Proprietary funds are enterprise funds and internal service. Enterprise funds are used to account for an activity which fees are charged for external uses of goods or services such as water, wastewater, and solid waste. Internal service funds account for financing of services provided by one department to other departments on a cost reimbursement basis. Examples are central purchasing, the mailroom, and healthcare accounts. The 2023 projected revenues for these funds are approximately $255.7 million, and the appropriation resolution is approximately $319.9 million. In comparison to the 2022 numbers, the projected revenues are $270.8 million, and the appropriation resolution was $296.8 million. Again, this is not deficit spending. I could go into the details of why those numbers do not appear to be balanced, but it has to do with debt service and whatnot. Our finance director's out there. Sir, did you want to address that, or did I just encapsulate it very succinctly? Thank you, sir. Again, I would not want anybody to think we are deficit spending by several tens of millions of dollars based on earlier discussions. So, is there any further discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Okay, this brings us to our departmental reports portion of our meeting. Do we have, let's see, utilities. Randy, do you have anything for us today?
I have nothing to report this week. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Jobs and Family Services.
Nothing additional to report today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. County Administrator. We seem to have lost our County Administrator. Huh? Okay. Finance, we're good on that. We just passed inside and outside. Madam Clerk.
Yes, the next regular Commissioners meeting will be Thursday, April 6th at 10 a.m.
Thank you, ma'am. Legal.
No reports, Commissioner.
Thank you. And looking to Jim Gills, anything you want to add to the discussion? Because I don't think these problems are going to go away if we just look the other way.
Well, I would tell you the kicking the can further down the hill doesn't serve anybody, either side. But I want to thank everybody for showing up and expressing their opinion. This is the roads and bridges are just as important as anything. The sheriff deputies can't drive on the road if it's not there or not in any kind of condition. People can't come into the county for their economic and benefit of the county to spend money. We can't go out of the county to go to our jobs and get money for our life, everyday expenses. So everything is important. It doesn't really matter. Water and wastewater is important just as much. If you don't turn on the faucet and there's nothing there, well, you got a problem. So, you know, we all have to share, but we also have to do priorities. I realize the jail is a big priority, but it is a big priority. This is an unusual situation that I've just gone through. Like I said, on Wednesday or Tuesday, this 22 years, over 22 years I've been here, and nothing like this has ever happened. I've talked to some of the old timers in my office that have been here more than 30 years. They don't remember it either. It's just an unusual circumstances. Hopefully it is a one-time thing and we'll go away. But I doubt that eventually that another emergency is going to come along. And we have to remember that we have 5 townships. We have 5 potential emergencies. We do service bridges inside the cities. If one of those goes down, that's an emergency, and that's a problem for everybody. So, again, though, I wish to thank everybody for their consideration, and those in the audience for their participation. We'll do the best we can with what we get. Thank you.
And just to be clear, your ask was $16,900,000. We went over the, I'm going to call them the emergency needs, the crisis needs of $9,632,300. The funds are available. If you had those dollars, you would be able to do the engineering. And again, just to be abundantly clear, all other alternatives, especially on this $9,632,300, have been exhausted. There is no other bucket of money to get it from.
We have looked under absolutely every rock, including Congress. But we will continue to look no matter what, because that's one of the things we do. We get so little money from the state, and remember, all of our money comes from the state to date, that it makes it very, very difficult not to seek outside funds. So we have no choice to be very, very active in that marketplace, and we have been. That is why we've gone 22 plus years without coming to the commission with our hat in our hand. This is a perfect storm. There's not much I can do about it, or not much more I can say. It is there, it is real, so somebody has to decide how we're going to handle it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else for an engineer? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to old business. Do we have any old business coming before this board? Well, we started to address the issue. Now that we got our inside general fund and outside general fund budgets for this year at least started, we know that there's going to be some reopeners going on as other demands come forward, but we do need to have real talk regarding the jail. And the question that is most outstanding is, what's the plan? I'm open to suggestions. What's the plan?
Mr. President, simply put, we find as much from the funds that you've yourself mentioned today, we find as much available monies to make as big a down payment as possible, reducing the annual obligation to the county so that over the next 30 years we will have more money for roads, bridges, deputies, and judges. And then we bond out the rest. That is the way we're going to have to pay for the biggest capital project. I understand that you had made a previous proposal to raise taxes. I strongly oppose that. I oppose it today, I oppose it tomorrow, and I will vote no on it anytime you propose it. But I believe we have sufficient resources if we work with our departments and we make difficult choices to get this job done. I know that we have strong agreement from our county auditor's office that this is possible and that raising taxes is not necessary. Once again, you may respectfully disagree, and I will respectfully disagree with you, but it's time to get started on building the jail now so that the project does not become even more costly.
Wonderful words. I'm a very visual person, so is it too much to ask in maybe a couple weeks you can actually come back with some numbers and show how that would work? Because I'm going to look at two of our trustees, Trustee Shelton, Trustee Gauntner. Would you please wait 30 years to get these roads taken care of? Because obviously we're going to be tied up for the next 30 years. Can you wait 30 years, please, for us to address these? Are you sure? Because I know this is a big ask of you, but you know, it's that in the interest of being collegial, of course. I hope you can hear the dripping sarcasm of what I'm saying. Can you wait 30 years?
Mr. President, I'm sure that neither can they wait 30 years, nor do they want to pay for the jail. So we're going to have to work on these difficult problems, Mr. President, but the jail is capable of busting the entire budget if we continue to delay. Much as I wish that past boards had addressed this, they did not, so it falls to us to deal with it now.
So you'll have a plan to present in 2 weeks as to what you're referring.
We are going to work together with our staff as we always do. It's not going to be a political proposition from one person. We're going to work with our staff, we're going to work with our budget director, and we're going to make sure that we have the best, most fiscally responsible plan for building this jail. We have to start now. The only reason we wouldn't start is if two commissioners say, let's wait. But I don't believe that's going to be the case, because then those commissioners would be responsible for the increases in costs that continue to accrue. I think we understand that as tight as things are, if we allow that cost to balloon out another $50, $100 million, we're going to be having far more difficult conversations. I mean, the budget is not unlimited today, but it could be a lot worse. I think we are in a strong place, but we have to start the work now. We cannot afford to delay. I wish the board had addressed this 4 years ago. I really do, but they didn't. And so here as we sit, we need to handle this difficult problem. And if we don't, we will be talking about cutting department budgets, not how much can we afford to increase them by. And past boards have cut budgets. You know, it saddened me greatly when in 2020 budgets were cut. It did. It resulted in layoffs, even in the prosecutor's office. That was not good for county safety. Now, it was understandable why those decisions had to be made, but we need to work hard to make sure we don't get back there. I never want to be in a position of saying, Mr. Prosecutor, Mr. Sheriff, you need to lay off deputies or prosecutors. We can't go there. So we need to get this done now before we have a budget-busting expenditure on the jail. I don't know anyone who disagrees with that, but if you do, if you think we should wait a year or two on the jail, let us know.
Well, we're fortunate to have the prosecutor in the office. Sir, I heard a reference to layoffs. I do not believe any layoffs took place. I believe there was a probationary employee that didn't make probation.
No, I had to lay an attorney off.
Was that someone who was also not, they were still on probation though? There was some, help me out with this, because
Attorneys don't have probation. No,
they're all at-will employees.
That's correct.
And this was a relatively new hire, if I remember correctly.
It was the newest hire.
And I realize our prosecutor is off microphone, so those who are watching this live and probably going to watch this recording, this was a relatively new hire that just didn't work out. I'll put it that way, because that was the discussion at the point in time. If I may, just use those words, please.
Mr. President, for the crowd, the prosecutor shook his head and said, no, it was a layoff.
Prosecutor Colson, why don't you come up to the microphone, because I am going to draw a line in the sand on this one. I grow tired of this.
What happened, excuse me, get on the microphone. What happened was in June or July, after half a year had gone by, the county sent out a letter saying we had to reduce our budgets by 5%. But they meant for the whole year. So since we've already gone through half a year, it was a 10% reduction in the budget.
Annual.
Correct, annual. And there was no way I could do that without laying off one of the attorneys. I did lay off an attorney who was relatively new, rather than lay off somebody who'd been there longer. I laid off the one who had the shortest seniority in the office. And but the good news is I'm now able to hire her back.
Thank goodness.
Thank you, sir. So, much was said about the plan. the plan that we could do it all with existing revenues. I think we've heard loud and clear from our staff that without additional revenues, we can't do it all. I think we've heard loud and clear from our county engineer and other community representatives that there are urgent needs. I think we need to put pen to paper and put something together, because sitting here and bouncing this back and forth, it's just not good for business. So is there anything further on the jail project? Okay. Do we have any new business to come before this board? Any new business? Hearing none. This brings us to our second public comment portion. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the board? Mr. Music. Thank you, Chris.
John Music, 45 Coventry Drive, Painesville Township. I just want to say, I'm asking all of you to basically make our government smaller. There's the three of left. So we can spend more on our departments and everything that is needed and required. In my opinion, you talk about the county. Go down into the state and talk to them, or go to the federal. Russell, Hart, Dirksen are the 3 Senate buildings. Longworth, Cannon, Rayburn are the 3 House. I've had meetings in all of them. Have you guys had all that? Go and listen to this. And the thing about it is, here's a list of the ballots that are on the May 2nd election. School levies and many other levies. And where do they all come out of? The same wallet. I don't care what level it is. All I'm asking, in my opinion, over the years, and I'm not just saying here, and I've been coming here for a long time, longer than any of the 3 of you, and I see a lot of money that could be better spent. And I will not ever change my mind as far as what is important. Our law enforcement's number 1. Our country says that. Our Constitution says it. Our pledge says it. Justice. And we can talk, are these other things important? You're darn right they are. But look at some of these cities that don't have any law enforcement. Look what's happening there. People don't want to go there. Stores are closing. People are moving out. You imagine what's going to happen with taxes? More and more people move out. So we have got to get a limited government, and it's going to be tough for you. There's going to be a lot of people out there that ask for money. And you're going to have to prioritize what is important. And that's not going to be easy. But I'm asking you to do that. Because, I don't think we're through this economy now, problem that we're having. It could very easily last till 24, easily. So all I'm asking is, you're going to have to make some hard decisions. And like I said, I contact DC and Columbus all the time. A lot of them don't even answer me anymore. Because when I go up there, basically what I found out, the more you know, you find out the less they know. It's like they say, we'll pass this bill and we'll read it later. Yeah, right. It's a great thing to do. So all I'm asking for you here at the county, just like those 3 departments that were here, and I'm talking about other ones, and I've said this before, I think they do a great job with taxpayer dollars. But let's get rid of some of the stuff that, do we really need to do? It's like, I'd say right out, the bed tax, I was against that, and I still am. I remember the nurseries used to be the big things in Lake County. I used to remember seeing all the nursery owners come in and speak. What happened to our nurseries? Well, our landfills took a lot of the property. I knew that gentleman that owned that nursery. I worked in a nursery for 2 years, made 75 cents an hour. Yeah, it's hard work, but it didn't bother me. But the thing about it is, it's like things could change. And I want the wineries to do well. But I think $275,000 for an arch is, in my opinion, ridiculous for the taxpayers to have to pay that. We could use that $275,000 spent on other things. Let's spend our money wisely, and let's see, like I said, well, I don't have it set, it's at the chair. Like one of our former presidents says, you know, we've got to do what we have to do and need to do, and then we can throw in some wants down the road. But like I said, the three of you have some tough decisions, and these department heads do a great job for us, and it's like the roads, this and that, and so forth. We need them. We do. But if we don't have law enforcement, we aren't going to have people on the roads. So I just want you to think about that, and you know, and like Mr. Pletchnik, don't ever forget the seniors. I talk to them all. I talked to one yesterday because they're calling me about this meeting, and he says, I take. He is a veteran. He takes 14 pills a day. He's not doing well, and he told me, I'm not going to get into that. His problems. And then another one I talked to, they have to have a shot once a week. $22,000 for the shot. Prescriptions, I looked at one. Last year it was $15. This year it's $41 and some cents. And that poor senior still only gets this person told me that's all they get from Social Security is $17,000. That's all they have. That is their income. And like they've said, right now it's 232,603 was the 2020 census. 1 out of 4 people in Lake County are seniors. They're predicting 1 out of 3 will be. And I remember years ago, Jason's back, but OPRS was froze. You know, Ohio Public Employee Retirements. It was froze because they had 2 unfunded liabilities. Get involved with the USPBGC. That's the United States Pension Benefit Guarantee. How many pension plans in the private sector and public sector are in there, where the federal government helps supply these pensions now? I'm saying, do your research. Don't you got to look above, because everything above does affect the county. It does. Like the government spending so much money, our dollar is not a dollar anymore. It's maybe a quarter. So just think about that and do what you can to do what you got to do to have enough money to provide, take care of the needs for these people and like the engineering, get the bridges fixed, the roads fixed, and everything else. But there again, I will not ever change. Law enforcement's number 1, because we will not have a country. And I'll debate that with anybody anytime. So I'm just want to tell you, do a good job for us, and some of the things you now support, maybe to say, hey, we can't do it right now. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sir, thank you. Prosecutor Colson. Welcome back, sir.
After I gotten back, I realized what you were referring to when we had that 10% reduction. I had a secretary who was on probation, and she didn't make it, and in order to have the full 10%, not only did I have to lay off the attorney, I didn't hire or replace that secretary. So that's what you were thinking about.
Thank you, sir.
Was the secretary that we didn't replace.
Thank you. That's an excellent point, because they do come in pairs, as you've made abundantly clear. You can't have an attorney without a secretary.
Attorney's no good without a good secretary.
Okay, folks, get a copy of that one. You might want to use it. That might be somebody's screensaver down in your office someday. Sir, thank you for that clarification. Sir.
Yes, boy, I wish I brought a notepad to take notes. This is my first commissioners meeting. I just wanted to bring up again Todd Baker, 840 River Street, Fire Chief in Madison, also a resident of South Madison. And I did want to share one more experience, and because of HIPAA, I'm not going to get into a whole lot of information, except I can tell you there was a second resident. My mother needed the ambulance, and fortunately my mother's doing okay. One of our neighbors, fortunately for them, were on the other side of that closure and went into cardiac arrest. And people started CPR, the ambulance got there, and thank God he survived and is alive today. Had he been at home, that additional 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 minutes probably would have been the difference in that gentleman being alive or that gentleman not being with us today. But there was a couple things that were going back when you were talking about the budget that I found really interesting. I fortunately, with one of my bosses, Mr. Gautner, get to manage a budget. And when we were talking about a balanced budget, we heard $10 million, $9 million, and $8 million. Well, if we're balancing a budget, then we're never going to spend that money. If we don't count that, if we can't use that money for other projects, because that puts us now over what our revenue is, why are we saving money? I have a budget, I have carryover, I have unencumbered money. I use unencumbered money we reappropriate money to make purchases that we feel are important in the fire department. We have money that's unencumbered and we need a fire truck. I can't afford to buy a fire truck out of my budget. Not out of my annual budget. We're talking about the jail, and God bless the sheriff, and I mean, no disrespect to them at all, but you represent we the people. And if there's a problem with money and you're trying to iron out needs on whether we need a new jail, I know you don't like it because you're politicians, but there's something called a bond. And I know you don't want to raise taxes on people, but you are the voice of us. These people should have a voice in this decision too. I think that we really need to look at priorities. I didn't hear a thing about ARPA money. I believe the county got $44 million. I think there was an extra $8 million in interest. That's $52 million. I know the ARPA money has specific requirements, but I think infrastructure is part of it. I think a road, and Mr. Gills isn't here now, but I think a road is probably infrastructure. That's not going to be enough to help you build your jail. It'll be a help, but I think if you ask people, they need to be able to come and go. They need to be able to travel safely on the roads. You keep talking about safety, and the jail is important for safety, but that doesn't matter if they can't get an ambulance. I understand you have a whole bunch of priorities to a greater scale than I, but I have all kinds of people that have wants, and we have to figure out what's important. You have money. Now, you may choose to spend it a different way, and that's fine. I can respectfully disagree, but we have the money here. We really need to think about safety, and just like the jail gets more expensive, delaying these roads gets more expensive, and delaying these roads becomes a safety issue. I think it was kind of misrepresented, this balanced budget thing was misrepresented because we all have unencumbered funds, we all have carryover money, you got an ARPA grant. Are there plans for the ARPA grant? I'm a little annoyed because as a resident of Madison Township and as the Madison Fire District Fire Chief, I hear people talking about wanting to put a water line down Bates Road and 307 to service a specific industry. I hear us wanting to spend $275,000 to put an archway over the road and some fancy sign to service a specific industry. I see our Senator Serino and Representative Callender passing legislation to help that specific industry navigate themselves around codes. And I hear us talking about the roads, which all of us use, but that doesn't seem to be a priority. I think the special interest of the commissioners needs to be the people that they serve and not necessarily special groups. And I think you really need to look long and hard at how important roads are, how important the lives of these people are, because if you have the money and you choose not to give that to Mr. Gills, you're placing Eastern Lake County at risk. And I know two of you are from the West End. I understand. This is an East End problem, and we really, really need the support of the commissioners to help Mr. Gills fix the problem, because it's not going to get better. Blair Road, I guarantee you, will be closed in a year. I don't know if he goes down the road. I go down the road every day. Now we're going to direct all of that traffic on one little country road. What do you think is going to happen to that? And let me ask you, what's the plan when all of those roads are closed? How do we address that problem? So I'm begging you on behalf of Madison Village and Madison Township and Leroy and Perry, please make this a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If I could just quickly address your statement regarding bonding. At previous meetings, we did have that same discussion with our engineer, and he did confirm that their budget is fully committed. In order to bond, you also have to have the ability for debt service. The county engineer is fully committed on his available resources.
I was meaning the jail.
Understood. Okay, referencing jail. Understood. But again, now referencing the jail. We as a county have to demonstrate the ability to do debt service. we're looking at a potential $8 million annual debt service. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. So just to keep that in the conversation. And regarding ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, there is $10 million that has been allocated towards the jail project. So just to be clear on that, and again, in interest of full disclosure. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Sir. So you're coming up to say you're willing to wait 30 years, am I correct?
I don't think so, Commissioner, I'm sorry. I'd like to, but I understand the problem. Ken Gautner, Madison Township trustee. Just want to reiterate what Chief Baker said again. We really need this addressed. And I want to remind the board of something that I meant to say the first time around. Madison Township has saved this county millions of dollars since 1967. And you ask how? We're the only of the 5 townships that have our own police department. Our budget this year for police is $3.3 million. You don't have to pay one dime out in Madison Township for Sheriff's Patrol. We cover the whole nut. And we have since 1967. So it's another thing to think about when you decide whether or not you want to fund this bridge on Ford Road. Taxpayers of Madison Township have paid a lot of money in, and I realize the county engineer doesn't get property tax money. As he said, his money comes directly from the state of Ohio. It doesn't come from property taxes. And a lot of people don't understand that, and I have to explain that to them all the time. But that $3.3 million we're spending on the police department saves you a lot of money. And just do the math. Go back to 1967 and see how much we've saved you. It's quite a bit. So again, I ask you to consider that. One other thing I'm going to take umbrage with, Commissioner Plesnick. And I'm not sure how old you are. I assume you're in your 30s. But that jail that you said was poorly built wasn't poorly built. I was the county administrator from 1989 to 2009. When I came in 1989, and Commissioner Hammercheck was here at that time, the building was about 50% done. But I was I won't say involved, but listening to all the debate about why that jail got built, because I was Madison Township Administrator from 1982 to 1989 when I came here. And the county commissioners back in the 80s, and you're probably too young to remember this, really struggled with building that building. There was a lady named Melda Turker. She was a state jail inspector, and she was riding their backside like you can't believe, because they were, at that time, the jail was behind the courthouse. It was built in 1909, and she said, this is not acceptable. We need a new building. The public came out in droves saying the commissioners don't need to build a new jail, but they had to. Melda Turker said, you will. As a matter of fact, I think she threatened to put some of them in jail. It was a huge debate. The News Herald did editorials on it. The commissioners at that time had to bite the bullet. They had to build that building. And they didn't build it poorly. They built it with the money they could afford to expend at that time. They didn't have a big budget. I mean, that building, if I recall, was about $18, $19 million to build, and by the time we bonded it out, it was somewhere $22, $23 million. They did the best they could. They didn't poorly build it. They built it with the money they had to do. And then to throw the blame, and I'm going to stick up for my former bosses. I work for 7 different commissioners, and they aren't here to defend themselves. But I am going to do that. Because you said they kicked the can down the road, they weren't paying attention. Well, I'm going to tell you, let's talk about some of the things they spent money on in my 20 years and 10 months I was here. They bought the Job and Family Services building. It was former Hex department store. They spent a little over $1 million to buy that building and about another $4 million to renovate it. In 1996, they bought the old Painesville Post Office. Can't remember the exact amount, but it was somewhere around $1 million for that. We then spent another $3 million renovating that, and part of that was because the judges decided that they didn't like the way the building was originally designed, and the courthouse committee got their nose stuck in the middle of it, and we ended up spending an additional $1 million we didn't have to spend. We put a big addition on the front of the juvenile court, which was about $2 million. We renovated the entire Nolan building. We renovated the entire administration building. We built the crime lab. We built a narcotics building. There was a lot of things going on. The biggest part of my job during those 20 years here was overseeing construction. Then in 2000, The judges said, we need a better courthouse. It was a 3-year project. It started in 2002, ended in 2005. We spent $15 million renovating that courthouse, which was built in 1907. We didn't knock it down. We spent $15 million to renovate it. I question whether or not you really do need a new jail. Maybe you do. I haven't read the architectural reports and what have you. Haven't seen those. But I know one thing, that building's 34 years old. We opened it up in November of 1989, and now we're talking about knocking it down. Do we spend $40, $50 million and renovate it rather than $170 million? Is that a better spend of the taxpayers' money? It might be. Again, I'm not privileged to those reports. But you need, before you say prior boards didn't do their job, you need to know what prior boards are doing. This county was growing. Oh, and I forgot to add that they even renovated the health district at one time was down over the hill, and that building caught fire. But they renovated that entire building for the health district. They were very busy. I don't care which board of commissioners it was, they always had a project going. So they didn't ignore the jail. They had other priorities. And maybe you need to re-examine that before you spend $170 million. I'm going to close by telling you one thing. John Platts, former county commissioner, who was one of my mentors, used to have a sign in his office. And that sign said, and I think it was very appropriate, Lake County is my service area, not my domain. Remember that. It's not your domain, it's your service area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I would just say that the opinion you took umbrage with, that the jail was obsolete the day that it opened and that it was poorly built, is something that all 3 commissioners have expressed. So if you don't like my opinion, you don't like the opinion of the board.
I guess I don't.
And I'll tell you right now, while they may have been busy with other things, because they were, we have to address this issue now. And I would strongly encourage you to read the reports that the county paid for, both before and during my tenure here as commissioner, which do demonstrate that it is more cost effective to build another jail rather than renovate. And even in, I believe it was 2019 numbers, it wouldn't be $50 million to renovate the jail. It would be considerably more when you take into account the addition, the roof, and what would be required. I'm open to a better suggestion. If there is an informed alternative that would meet state law requirements, that would meet the sheriff's needs and keep our corrections officers and the people in the jail safe, as well as provide for a police department for the county, then I would be open to that. But the county has worked very hard and has had expert reports over several years, not over months, but over several years, that have all indicated what we need to do. So I heartily encourage anyone who's curious about this issue to read those reports and familiarize themselves with how important this project is. It's not something we can kick down the road much as we wish that we could.
Well, as long as we're having a little commentary, I'll just throw the situation Eastlake found themselves in not so many years ago with the Eastlake Stadium. They entered into a venture on it, if come. I believe it was decades that they have been laboring under that, and I think they're finally getting close to paying off the Captain Stadium. Mayor Morley routinely points out it's the Lake County Captains, not the Eastlake Captains. The bed tax. Back in the day, the Board of Commissioners added an additional 1%, so it went from 2% to 3%. And that money was committed for a period of time, that 1%, towards debt service, assisting with debt service on that stadium, because Eastlake faced bankruptcy because of bonding and exceeding revenues and exceeding capacity to sustain and support significant cuts in Eastlake in staffing and services being delivered and quality of life. I'm pretty sure if you'd like Mayor Morley to come and talk about the history of Eastlake and what happens when you overcommit, I'm pretty sure he'd be glad to come here and help educate us and explain the situation, the history. And I almost said Commissioner Gauntner. Trustee Gauntner, thank you for that history, because that is very important indeed. So, let's see. believe we're still in the public comment. Sir, ma'am. Ladies first, of course, Jen. I'm sure you'll understand. Yes, ma'am.
Heather Shelton, Leroy Township trustee. Commissioner Plechnik, you were quick to state that previous commissioners have kicked the can down the road, and you were stating that the two newest members on this board were not part of that. If you make the decision, as others have made in the past, to kick it down the road, you are just as guilty. I'm asking you to please make these funds a priority for the Leroy Township residents. And Mr. Regovich, Commissioner Regovich, we met with you when you were running for election, and you met with all the members of the township. You made a pledge, more or less, to look after the needs of the townships. You said you would be a listening ear and a voice for the townships. I am asking you to hold that promise true. Please look at the funds, search your heart, and know that this is something that needs to be addressed. Before we build something shiny and new, we need to fix what's broken. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Music.
John Music, 45 Coventry Drive. By the way, I was at those hearings, and there were a lot of business people from Lake County and residents from Lake County that were against this bed tax. Businesses bring employees or customers in for training, for meetings. A lot of people say somebody got married, they bring families in, or for graduations, or for funerals. And then again, it's going to be. And there were, like I said, there were many businesses and residents that talked against the bed tax. It isn't just me. It's just, like I said, all I'm saying, our money could be better, our tax dollars could be better spent. My parents grew up in Leroy. He had a 100-acre farm on Payne Road. He was a farmer, he used to drive his team of horses. Remember, the fire station used to be in Caps, originally. People don't remember that. That's the thing. He didn't even have a tractor. He drove his team up to the bar up there, and that's what he did. He was a hard worker. He came in this country legally. But he had a 100-acre farm, and he was a very hard worker. I know Leroy very well. My parents live there, and so forth and so forth. In fact, that house still stands. Doesn't have a bathroom, didn't even have running water, didn't have a bathroom, nothing. But he made it. Things get tough sometimes, but the tough get going. So all I'm asking you is make good decisions, and so we can help the departments, including the engineer, to help them with the least amount of effect to the taxpayers, especially the seniors.
I would like to draw on your experience. I'm going to be candid. You've been coming to commissioner meetings 15, 20 years?
Well, 2005 is the first one I spoke, but I was some previously, and I just sat there and didn't say nothing. But 2005, there was a resolution I didn't agree with, and it went round and round. They passed it. I can tell you the commissioners that were on that passed it, and it was something they should have, and eventually it was rescinded by another group. So, yes, I've been coming to these meetings for a long time. And just FYI, in the last few years, I've been invited to meetings in Arizona, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, down in Florida, and one at in the Capitol. I've had meetings in the Capitol at D.C. I've walked the streets in protest. A legal protest. The police had the roads blocked off. We met in Freedom Park. There was Congress members there, military, religious leaders came in and spoke, and then like Alan West, he came and he would mingle in the crowd and talk with everybody, and a lot of the Congress members did. I've done a lot, and the thing about it is I've learned a lot. And just think, sadly, whatever the federal government does, the state government, it does affect everybody. It does affect everybody. And it affects you because you may not get the grants. All the grant means, I was at a school board meeting the other day, and it's really upsetting to me. The woman said, because they're proposing to to add 1,700 homes in Painesville Township over in the east end, over by the old Casement Airport. And she was sort of upset because they were saying, well, that's going to add all these kids to one school, which why are all the other townships paying for that? And I thought, well, some of my federal tax dollars may go to Alaska or California or wherever. We pay the taxes, we have no idea where they go, and we do what we got to do. So, but I just wondered, that's just the way taxes are. You know it, and I know it. There's 23 communities in Lake County, 9 villages, 9 cities, and 5 townships. 2 townships have limited home rule, like you don't have home rule per se. And the thing about it is, my township has limited. Concord and Painesville Township have limited home rule. And like it was mentioned, you can have police departments in townships. You can even have an adjoining township or something to be with you and so forth. I've read the home rule, and I'm not getting into all that, but the thing about it is, I am just saying that all I'm saying is we got to cut back on our expenses because things are tough out there. That's all I'm asking you to do, and do what the best way our tax dollars can be spent. Okay?
And out of respect, again, as a longtime visitor, someone who participates actively, our bed tax, it comes in 2 forms. 2% for lakeshore
Correct.
improvements that goes to our Port Authority, now our Economic
Correct.
Development Authority, 3% to our Visitors Bureau. If we remove that 3%, I just want to be clear, that is the overwhelming majority of funding for the Visitors Bureau. You would effectively shut the Visitors Bureau down. They would have to close their doors.
Yeah. I looked in the 88 counties in the state and the number of counties that have they have a convention/visitors bureau, which we don't have a convention center. A lot of places do, and so I won't get into all that. But the thing about it is, it's like, could our tax dollars be better spent?
Just to be
We
clear,
could do the roads, we could do this, because 3%, and then it isn't just, I know people here that live in Lake County. When Quail was here, we're going to go for the Quail Hollow, we're going to play golf there, so we're going to stay there the weekend, or various other things, and or like if they go out to the Spire, what I mean? I've been out there many times, and the thing about it is, it's like, it isn't just visitors from out of town that come in, it's a lot of Lake County residents that come in, that use them. So, like I said, I'm just asking to be good stewards of it, so we can pay for these department heads to do their job,
But just
and
to be
that's all I'm
clear,
asking.
I can't take bed tax money and fund job and family services.
I understand that.
There's no legal mechanism.
I know, like I
Just
said.
don't want to see those dollars being confused.
Like I said, and I know there are limitations. You have, like I said, Ohio Constitution is the highest state law, and then Ohio Revised Code, Administrative Code. I'm reading out all those at least once a week, and there's a lot to it. How many people have read the U.S. Constitution? I've read it about 5 times. How many people have read it? There's seven articles and 27 amendments. How many people know that? Duh. There was a question on one of the trivial questions, and they said, how many amendments are there? 27 was one. 27. Guess what? I was right. And the thing about it is, so many people don't know a lot of things, and I've learned a lot. All I'm asking you is to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. That's all I'm asking you, and especially the seniors, they're hurting. They are hurting. Because hopefully every day someone's going to be a senior here. Hopefully they will, and you will see, here we go, subject matter expert, and like we talked, the reason I keep bringing up Captain Brooks and Sheriff Liam Bruno, they both were jail administrators. So who knows more about what we need? But a jail administrator. You know more from within than you can from looking in from outside. And same thing with being a senior. I didn't know all the things seniors were how they were affected. I'm learning. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Anyone else? All right, thank you. That concludes our second public comment portion. There is a request for an executive session. The purpose is personnel, collective bargaining. There will be no business to be conducted afterwards. Do I have a motion to adjourn for the reasons so stated?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today.